What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what is really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is up 2.86%, 1261 the low, 1315 the high, and 3.2 million shares being traded, 9.5 is the average. So another fairly low volume day. Today ultimately is more of a reflection day on what's been happening over the last several trading days, and clearly based on the price action today, not just with Lucid but across the board, it is fair to assume that institutions feel yesterday's sell-off was unjustified. Yesterday's sell-off was because of largely unofficial data linked to Black Friday. Today, there really hasn't been that much in kind of news or any articles or anything like that. So as I mentioned, it's more of a reflection day. Nothing coming out from Lucid. So no press releases, no SEC filings or anything like that. Although there was a couple of things I want to share with you. So latest flyover, this came out 17 hours ago. And there is a lot of good kind of production happening, as what even the individual does state that based on what he can see, it looks like they will be hitting their target. I think it might be premature to kind of mention that, but even he does bring up though that he doesn't know how kind of deliveries are going to pan out, which is fair to assume. I think Lucid's always kind of encountered that every Q4 they somehow get the magical strength to ramp up, and then obviously they don't have all the delivery kind of infrastructure down set, so unfortunately you have a little bit of a lag. But nonetheless, if they can hit their target, that's all that matters, in my opinion. So let me know your general thoughts on that in the comments below, but definitely a good flyover. Recommend a lot of people to kind of watch it and so forth. Only other thing that did come out was a article saying that the very first gravity did get registered in Norway. So good stuff. I've kind of brought up Norway in the past. Originally, Lucid back in 2024 had a lot more ambitious targets to kind of take over Europe, which would have been good. But you can kind of see right over here, this just last month, there was, looks like 19,427 out of the 19,899 cars sold in Norway were full electric, 97.6%. So I think in general, if Lucid wants to take over Europe, this is the place to do it. So them kind of delivering their first gravity is pretty good. One thing I don't like about this kind of article, so electricvehicles.com, sometimes it's this individual and sometimes it's Alfonso, but I think they're just very bearish on Lucid, because even right here, sells 0 air sedans in November. So ultimately, if you kind of scroll down here, it just says Lucid air demand. It does not state exactly where they're getting that information from whatsoever. I know typically a lot of individuals have used this. So I kind of always used this up until I think it was July or something, maybe possibly even August, prior to Lucid calling them out saying that it was completely wrong, which this does show October's numbers, but not November's. So I think there's just a lot of kind of manipulation, a lot of FUD being spread. And so let me know your general thoughts on that. So again, kind of interesting stuff. So this article is a good / negative article. So good that I guess Lucid is going into Norway. Bad that I guess still selling 0 air sedans, which I completely see as BS, in my opinion, of course. But aside from that, looking at shorts, at the time of doing this video, they are increasing 196,000 shares. 14.4% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 45.3 million shares overall being shorted. So funny thing, I actually did have a weekend video, just I forgot to put it out to the public. So kind of stayed in private, unfortunately. I did go in a very long explanation on why we are at that 14.74%. So you kind of missed out on that, but I'll give you a quick brief overview of that. So ultimately, this is the free float. And so quickly popping over here. So right now there is about 307.4 million in free float. And that did change because of this right here. So there was a amended 13D that did signal that various entities, and this is all because of technically the convertible note that did happen. But this entity right here went from about 2.7 or 2.6 billion shares to 227. And alongside you have the PIF and whatever else, because of how some of these entities are coded. That did free up more available free float shares. And so all of this is just formulas. So more available free float shares, shorts kind of maintaining and staying the same. This is how the percentage went down from almost like 30% to where it is now. So that is a quick explanation. In my video over the weekend, I kind of went over a lot more, but nonetheless, if you guys want, I can always kind of put it out. It might be a little bit outdated information, but nonetheless, that's why we are at 14.74%. Cost to borrow average has been inching up slightly. So that is sitting at 20.56. And then aside from that, looking at the options, 120,000 in calls, 149,000 in puts, and then 56% of all the options being done are bullish in nature. So definitely good to see, although very, very low volume. So it does match with the overall common stock. So institutions not really doing too much in my opinion, which I'll go over in a second. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around 14 by the end of this week. And then the bears are all over the place. There doesn't seem to be any kind of concentration. If anything, they feel that it will be kind of sub 1350 to 1450, but I think a lot of that is hedging in my opinion. But these are some of the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So 3 sells and 1 buy, and all was pretty much done close to the bell, opening bell, of course. So institutions aren't really doing too much, as I already mentioned. These are some of the transactions occurring on the dark pool. Dark pool is often enough used by shorts and hedge funds, so it is fair to assume that shorts are fairly active, and you do see the occasional hedge fund. So anything with like a hold number like 10,000, that's typically hedge funds. So they are a little bit active today, which is good to see. With it right now at 1293, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So 1318 is going to be the next round target / resistance, and that's kind of what it did bounce off of. So 1315 was the high, so we know that this is a strong resistance point. 1259 and then 1222 is going to be the next strong kind of support levels. So when it came down to my weekend video, where again I didn't really put out, I did signal how we could be having the same type of price action to what happened in September, where a lot of this was artificial. So Lucid really didn't put out anything during this time frame, just algorithmic trading pushed it higher. Same type of scenario might potentially play out. It's all going to come down to the data. So we have a lot of big data that could justify a potential rate cut for the upcoming December 10th meeting. And it's like I said, if the market does truly believe that we can get a cut, then we're going to have similar type of price action to September, where it could potentially move it to, let's say, that 50-day moving average. If data doesn't come in line with expectation, and now the market assumes that a cut won't be happening, or potentially it's 50-50, you're going to see Lucid get dragged down. So right now it's kind of flirting with that 10-day moving average, so kind of shows that there's a little bit of momentum. But as I even mentioned, and from what you can see from the flow right here, most of the transactions are being done through algorithmic trading. So you have a lot of individuals saying that, hey, like time to buy is going to go to easily $18, $19. I've never really understood exactly where they get these kind of price predictions from. No different than that article, just randomly saying random stuff without actually giving concrete data. So this is usually, in my opinion, always kind of a red flag whenever I see a lot of larger accounts on social media start pumping Lucid. That's usually a precursor that we start going down, in my opinion. But nonetheless, it's all going to come down to the data for this week, whether we get a cut or not. But aside from that, though, if we do get that cut, we could easily see a nice push higher to at least, I'd say, that 1630, and that's just based on the market position. So you have a couple of gaps that could be filled as well. So there's no real rule of thumb saying that, hey, this technically needs to be filled, this gap needs to be filled. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it gets filled 6 months, a year down the line, or sometimes it just never does. So at the end of the day, those are some kind of points to watch for. There really hasn't been any articles other than what I've kind of brought up. Big thing, I think, overall for Lucid investors is that latest flyover, signaling a little bit of a increase in production, of course. So that's a good thing. Moral of the story, they just need to hit their target. Now they have less than 1 month to do that. So it's all going to come down to the numbers. We'll have to wait and see how everything does play out. But I'm cautiously optimistic for this week that we could get at least the assumption of a rate cut and thus pushing Lucid and the broader market higher. So let me know your general thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, many of which have been absolutely on point despite a lot of the crazy volatility, because I've been starting to look at stocks that aren't well known. They are flying under the radar, and those are surprisingly doing a lot better than big names. And I think shorts as well, they're trying to target a lot of more heavy retail presence stocks such as Lucid and whatever else. So I've been trying to find a lot of kind of quieter names, so definitely pop over there, take a look, worthwhile. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.